Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to today's Mailer Sub webinar. We're going to be starting here in a few seconds, probably in a minute or so, a little bit early here. So just go ahead and get your last-minute beverages or sandwiches or whatever for lunch. Come on back in about a minute, and we'll get started. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Okay, good afternoon, folks. Welcome again to today's Mailer Sub webinar. Today we're going to have a presentation by Tom Glassman, one of our major contributors. Tom has been in the mailing business now for about 25 years and is a postal and mailing operations expert. Originally from the Boston area and a graduate of Babson College, he began his career operating a Cheshire labeling equipment, if you can remember that way back, and has gone through a variety of positions in mailing operations, managing big plants, including Tabs Direct in the Dallas area, and working at Wyland Direct in Florida. Tom is one of our MTech representatives and is active on many of the MTech work groups. Tom has spoken at the forum, on the postal forum rather, has contributed to many of our webinars, and of course is contributed to our newsletter. So without any further ado, please welcome Tom to our webinar this afternoon. And as you can see, you have a chat box to ask questions, which we'll be watching. So please, if you have any questions during Tom's presentation, please type them in there, and we will do our best to answer them in the course of the webinar. Thanks again. Tom, take it away.
Thanks, Leo. So we're going to start off in a little different way. I've got a tangent kind of on the warpath about, and I need help. Both physically and mentally, but on the physical side, for those people listening, I've noticed in my informed delivery campaign, so for instance, my primary ballots showed up on a Monday, and the mail actually showed up on a Wednesday, and I can see as the mail goes through the week, by Friday, Saturday, whatever shows up in the informed delivery campaign is delivered. So I can tell I'm one of the 400 test markets where if the clerks or the delivery people are overloaded, they're going back to the DDU with the mail and sending it the next day. Then occasionally I see the same piece show up in my informed delivery twice, which means that if the clerk has enough mail left over, they're then taking that mail, putting it back through the sorters so that the next day he only has, or she only has, one mail stream to deliver instead of two. So here's my request. Dan, I see you're out there, and Jen. For those people that have access to databases, the IV database, can you please look for the same piece with multiple 918, 919 scan events? So the 918, 919 is the final sort. It's the stop the clock, and that's where the informed delivery campaign picture is taken. So I'm looking for people that can actually document the mail going back to the facility and reprocess the next day or a couple of days out. So that's my favor, and that's my odd way to start the webinar, asking for a favor from the audience as opposed to me trying to teach something. I'm looking to compile data that I can give to Leo and then turn in a document to Postal Headquarters that says this is what's going on. Although the second sort of the mail is cheaper and more lean than trying to mix manually a second pass of mail, it just shouldn't be that way. So again, if you could look at your IB databases, if you're seeing repetitive 918, 919s on a different day, I'd appreciate hearing about it. If you could give me a copy of some of the data from that file, possibly, so I can show the physical resorting of the mail. All right, here we go. Michelle, could you advance, please? Okay, so where do we start? In the past, we've talked about lean as a process for your plants, and people tend to skip it or ignore it when it comes to the office, the customer service area, the accounting area, people that are putting documents together, keying them into GMC or Planet Press. We forget about the office and the lean concepts that will help us get through the day and save us money and try to generate additional value-added products while dismissing non-value-added products. Michelle? Okay, as I have taught for years and years, and the funny thing is, my current boss at Rico just laughs at me when I tell him this because he doesn't believe it. Multitasking is a lie. If you go and Google multitasking, you will see paper after paper, document after document that says, people, we can't do multiple things at the same time. You're actually split tasking. I just read recently one paper that was published that said there could be a potential of a 40% loss in efficiency by trying to do too many things at the same time. If you want to do a test within your office, take a piece of paper, tell the people to write, multitasking is a lie, and then you want to time them, but under each letter, you do the number. So multi, the M1, U2. So it's letter, number, letter, number, letter, number. Then ask them to do the same test where they write the whole sentence. Multitasking is a lie, and then write the numbers underneath so that you're not split tasking, you're actually doing a task, the letters, and then a second task. Typically, when I do that test for fun with an audience, it takes them 40 to 60 seconds to do the M1U2 because they're split tasking. And then when we retake it, they typically have it done in about 20 seconds. So again, multitasking is a lie. When I visit companies and I talk to managers, they think it's an asset. They look for people with that skill. It's actually a bad skill. You need to concentrate on what you're doing. In the morning, I start with a list. I go down the list. I cross things off. If something comes up during the day, I don't switch what I'm doing. I just will add it to the list. Next slide, Michelle. So a lot of people, when they teach lean classes or talk lean, they talk about continuous improvements. Another myth. There is nothing continuous on the lean journey. It's full of interruptions. It's full of climbing that hill. It's full of coming back down the hill. It's taking a stop to look at and measure, did I succeed with the project that I was involved in? So again, the goal for lean journeys, continuous improvement journeys, would be regular, continual improvement of the processes you're working on. And it never stops. So even though you've improved something this month, you may want to come back to it 6 months to a year later. And again, it's not a continuous improvement. It's hills and dales, it's ups and downs, but it's continuous improvement of your processes. Michelle. And all this will tie together as we go through. I also wanted to talk about teamwork and why teamwork is so important. So the lean concepts that we're going to get into, they work best when you put a team and you have different opinions, different subject matter experts, allowing them to think freely as part of a team. So trial and error. There are times when we have failed at something. But again, instead of walking away and just trying to redo it, we regroup, we sit down, why did we fail? We discuss it. And sometimes those learning experiences are more valuable than going straight to a successful outcome. So it brings a team approach together, it gets team communications, and at times it could be more valuable than just going straight to a successful outcome. So again, team approach, communications. Michelle? So although when you put a team together, there's some great coaching experiences that they're going to be absorbing and learning from, there's huge benefit from leveraging each member's strengths. So when I sit down in a meeting with Leo and George, each one of us has got a different background and we're coming from a different place and we back stuff around. So we perform at a higher level as a team and there's more accountability between the people. And also because we're working as a team, I'm holding other team members responsible and more accountable than trying to do something on an individual basis. There's also, as a team, there's additional accountability when trying to reach specific targets, milestones on a schedule, and trying to get to that common outcome. So again, when you're thinking lean, when you're thinking projects, think team and different subject matter experts. Next slide, please. All right. A team tends to be more assertive in their thinking than an individual. So the team agrees on a concept, they bring that forward with management. Acting as an individual, the manager may not move on that concept, they may not implement that process, but as a team showing consensus and bringing that forward, the outcome is usually a lot better than working as an individual. It also provides a deeper learning experience. There's greater proficiency and confidence in the team working together than individually. So again, if an obstacle is thrown at a team, there tends to be an attitude or a culture of how can we work around that obstacle? How can I get through and reach my end goal? Where individuals may just give up and walk away. So again, teamwork. Michelle? Okay, so as I move into lean practices and trying to show the audience, it's not specific to just manufacturing. Here is an office environment. What is wrong with this picture? That's a high-speed meter. Again, that meter's processing 1,000, 1,500 pieces. They're running small mailings through it. Take a look. The first problem is, where is my work area to feed? The other thing is, things tend to flow better in a counterclockwise flow. And then look at the output. I don't have any place to put anything as I'm running stuff through a high-speed meter. So if I have 1,000 pieces to go through, I have very little desk space on the feed, and I have very little desk space on the output. So what they tend to do is they tend to leave, there's an island in the middle, They grab handfuls of mail, run it through, pick it up, walk back, and put the finished pieces into another tray. So again, not very lean, but what I'm trying to show is, and by the way, it's not COVID, it's my summer allergies. So again, lean processes, not just for the plant, but also can be used within an office. All right, Michelle, let's move forward as we get into lean. What is lean? Lean is a unified system for improving productivity and work quality in the office environment. So again, I'm leaving the plant and we're going to talk about what can I do with my files? What can I do with my emails? What can I do with all of the information, newspaper articles and stuff that are flowing to me on a daily basis? Michelle, please. All right, so the same as when we taught in the production area, there's 5 S's: sort, set, shine, standardize, sustain. So the sorting, get rid of the clutter. You got to organize, and you have to stay organized. Set in order, organize the work area. Everything has to have a place. Shine out back was cleaning the equipment, painting the equipment, cleaning the floor, making everything shiny and looking new. People felt better about their workspace. Same thing in the office. You don't want to bring a customer in and have stuff thrown all over the place, and that the only organized room is the conference room. Trust me, that customer's looking everywhere. Standardization, we need to develop routines. When I say cleaning and organizing, we need to develop routines of where to put things. Everything has to have a home. And then sustain, I have to maintain or figure out a way to maintain those standards that we've just set within the office, within the customer service area, within the accounting department. Michelle, slide change, please. So the sort, making a decision about every single piece of information that's accumulated in your office. You need to look at your physical paper, your journals, your newspapers. You need to look at your emails, your files. I gotta do something with them. I just can't leave them piling up in the office. I've been in many plants and I walk into production manager's office, walk into the COO's office, there's piles of paper. It's not appealing when you bring customers in. Again, everything should have a home. Michelle, slide change, please. Set in order. When you file things away, you need to ensure that the critical information can be found quickly and easily. Slide change, please. Applying preventative maintenance. Now, think about preventative maintenance in the office. That's a decision of what to do. And it elevates your processes beyond simply desktop or the office organization. So an example would be when myself and Michael Patterson were managing world marketing, we took the mail area, we started cleaning up, organizing, striping, cleaning vents and things like that. Other departments, seeing what we were doing, started picking up and emulating what was happening in the mailroom. So again, let your processes be known. Other people will start to pick it up because your area is looking a lot different than their area. Paying regular attention to incoming information, ensuring that your office and that you and your staff know if anything is falling behind. So you're putting a process in place that's regularly looking at what's flowing into the office. It reduces the risk of invoices not being paid. It reduces the risk of a job falling behind the wayside and not being run when it's supposed to be run. Next slide, please. Standardization. Develop a precise routine for the most easily controlled elements in a chaotic environment. cleaning and organizing the workspace. Again, you develop a workflow and follow that workflow. Michelle? How do I sustain these changes? So you need to figure out a way to keep those processes going. I am a big fan of checklists. A job ticket, the outside of a job ticket in customer service, is a great checklist. It also is a great way to file everything related to that job into that job ticket. So again, in the past, I've talked about checklists out on machines. We need checklists within your data department, checklists within customer service, checklists within accounting. Michelle, next slide. So suggestions. So we know we have to put processes in place, but what do I do? So manage incoming paper into 3 stacks: incoming, outgoing, and stuff to read, information like Mailer Sub newsletter. So the 3 stacks can be electronic and it can be physical. Doesn't matter. You're organizing inbound, outbound, and reference material. Next slide. So what do I do with that information when I go to file it? I have working, meaning it's stuff that I need to look at on a regular basis. Reference material, or reference of jobs and suppliers, things that are less than looking at weekly or monthly. And then archive, you're never going to look at it again. So I've taken my inbound, outbound, and reference, and now I can break it into working, reference material, and archive based on how often I'm going to use it. And again, not just for physical paper, I practice the same thing for my electronic files. Next slide, please. What is value added? Those things that I do for the customer, that I charge the customer that they have value for. So typically when I put a bill together, the client's paying us for an end product. Sit back, look at what you're doing, and determine what has no value. Those things you're doing that the customer is not paying you for. Time wasted that you're trying to get back after being interrupted is a non-value added element of your day. You want to try to reduce those interruptions so that you can get more work done. How much time did you waste picking up drop balls or reminding people of their tasks? Someone should have notes in front of them on their desk of what they're supposed to be doing. You shouldn't have to remind people over and over again what you need and what has to be done. And then defects. Why are there defects, and why are you wasting time fixing those defects? Get back to the root cause. Eliminate the errors so that there aren't any defects. Again, we're reducing non-value added things happening in your plant or your office or your data department. You know, maybe the data department, if you've got high error rate, maybe they should slow down, look at their checklists, because if you produce it once and take a little longer to produce that file and don't have to keep recreating it over and over and over again, it's actually a benefit to the company because you're getting it done quicker. Next slide, please. So you want to develop a flow. Lack of flow is like a virus in the front office. It's like a virus in the data department. You have to have a workflow. You need to follow that workflow. And the work that you're doing needs to be done on a continuous basis. Because if you keep going stop and go, you forget where you left off, you forget processes, and it's not a continuous workflow. So again, advice, have a workflow, follow the workflow. And just editorial comments, the post office with our new postmaster general. And again, I'm not criticizing and I am not encouraging, but the workflows and time allotted for when letter mail was prevalent over parcels is different than the workflow you need when a majority of the mail or a greater portion of the mail is now parcels. The workflow needs to be adjusted. And the adjustment is not elimination of all the overtime. The adjustment is look at what is in my mix and adapt to that mix. Just don't lob off hours, because those hours, before we calculated our workflow on delivering letter mail and flats, where we had a lot of machine automation. Now my workflow includes all these packages from vendors, Amazon and others. So adjust the workflow. Maybe you need more carriers with less overtime. Again, I don't know, I'm not there, I'm not working it, but there's a real life example of how someone's trying to modify, save money without understanding what's in the makeup of that decision. Sorry, political comments along the way. Next slide, please. 7 wastes. So think about waste in the office. The customer is not paying you for the waste. So again, correction of defects in the front office, accounting invoice mistakes irritate a customer. I'll give you a great example. Rico, where I work, has actual production facilities around the United States. We actually have a large facility in Parma, Ohio. And we were taking some of our residual mail and handing off to a pre-sort bureau, and the facility insisted not the pre-sort bureau. Our staff wanted to use EPS. Well, the pre-sort bureau was so used to setting up escrow accounts, we broke their normal workflow, so they took postage out of our EPS account and our escrow account. It was a legitimate mistake, but there's an example of they didn't set up a workflow with checklists that could be followed to ensure that our Parma team wouldn't get upset because we were double billed for postage. Conveyance or handoff, including electronic documents, to keep handing stuff off over and over and over again is just a waste of time. Overproduction, wait time between processes. Wait time, think about in the data department, if you have a lot of wait time and the software engineer or the programmer doesn't remember where they left off, you could end up missing a step. Maybe forgetting to do NCOA or forgetting to do the DSF file. Excess motion, making copies of things just to cover one's butt. Excess processing, extra steps, extra approvals, extra sign-offs, which I'll get to around QC processes and quality control. And then inventory, those piles on the floor that I've seen in plants when I walk into the owner's office or the manager of customer service, having lots of piles on the floor from different projects. It shouldn't happen. Next slide, please. And then the 4 Ds. If you can do it immediately, just do it and get it done with. Complete it now. I put 2-minute rule in there. Delegate it if there's a person better suited for the job. Quick example, I'm showing all of our customers that have pre-sorted mail how to access the scorecard. We actually came up with, my team, not me, my team came up with a template and dashboards around the scorecard. So again, one of my members of the team is better in Excel and filtering and pivot tables than I am. So he was the better person to delegate the job to. I gave him the concept of where we wanted to go and said, build it. Again, there's no mistakes, but he was a better person to delegate the job to. Designate it. If it's a project and it's going to consume a lot of time, schedule the proper time with the proper people, and then discard it. If it's irrelevant or insignificant, discard it. Holding on to a trade journal for 4 weeks or more, you're not going to read it. Just recycle it. Michelle, next slide. Quick tips and tricks. Michelle. So some of these, if you've been in one of my lean lectures around plants and workflows within a plant, these are the same slides, and it still applies to the front office. I'm tired when people say it can't be done. Think about alternative ways. So I have a lot of people reaching out to me during the day. They run concepts by me. I will never say no. I always come back with an alternative. You can't do it this way, but it can be done this way. So instead of saying no to someone, sit with the person, find out what their end goal is, and try to come up with a different way of reaching that goal. Next slide, please. Stop making excuses. Question all your current practices. Why do you do stuff? So, for instance, I've been in a plant talking to the data department, and they would run the file against the DSF. And then if the customer changed the file, they would rerun the DSF. And this was the practice. So I said, if I'm in house number 1 and you change the people before me and after me, my house is still number 1 on the roof. It doesn't change. So they needed to look at their current practice and why they were doing it, and stop spending the extra money to keep redoing the DSF on the file, because it's a delivery sequence file. The sequencing of the house never changes. I am always the first stop in the route. No matter how many times you change who's on that route, I am still the first stop. So again, question everything. Why are you doing it? What is the reason behind that? Can we do it different? Can we do it better? Can we do it with an added quality? Can we do it faster? Next slide, Michelle. Correct mistakes at once. Lots of times when I go through a plant and we talk scenarios with the managers, they'll make a note on a problem and then bring it up later in the week. Worst possible thing. You find a mistake, correct it at once. And then let the people explain that made the mistake, why the mistake occurred, how they fixed it, and then third, how are they going to prevent it in the future? Again, correcting mistakes immediately. Next slide, Michelle. Don't seek immediate perfection. My favorite slide on the deck. It's okay if you're modifying a process and it's not exactly what you're looking for. Lend guidance and let your team figure out how to get to that end goal. So again, don't expect as a manager immediate perfection, but guide the team along. Next slide, Michelle. Don't spend money. Go after the low-hanging fruit first. So again, the example I gave around the DSF file when I visited that plant, that's low-hanging fruit because they'd be in charge per 1,000 records. If I can only do it once instead of 2 or 3 times to 50% of my files, that's huge dollars at the end of the year. I didn't invest a penny. I modified my workflow because they didn't need to run the DSF twice. Next slide, please. Ask why multiple times. Seek the root cause. So I get called out to investigate a HIPAA violation. I went through the whole process, and it came down to the mailroom at this medical facility was adjacent to the main entranceway into the medical offices. And the team there always pinned the door open for air circulation. So I kept asking why. Why was the door open? Why was the door open? You have a secure area, you have medical records, and the door is open. And finally, after asking 10 times, they finally figured it out. I didn't want to give them the answer. I keep asking why until they figure it out and they see where the problem occurred. Same thing when I was at Tabs. We had sand and presses, forms presses. There was a leak in one of the heads. So the side of the press is all gears because it's turning all the rollers inside to apply the ink to the paper. So there was a leak coming out of the side, and I kept seeing kitty litter to absorb the oil on the floor. So again, I kept asking, well, why? Well, we're putting the kitty litter down because there's an oil leak. Why? Well, because the threading on the screw, it misthreaded, and we didn't have time to go get something to redo the threading for a new screw. Why? And it just kept going until they finally caught on. Why would I want to take the risk, the safety risk, to have oil on the floor, to keep putting an absorbent on it? Why don't you just fix the problem? So again, I asked why multiple times, and I do that so that the people will give me the answer. So I'm not telling them. If they come up with the answer, they'll learn something from the event. If I just go and tell them, it's going to happen again. Next slide, please. I always seek the wisdom of 10 rather than the knowledge of 1. So my team, I run as a team. I'll take a concept, I'll run it by them, I'll listen for their input, and typically let them run with the concept. So again, I don't know what I don't know when I talk to them, and I find that they typically come up with better ideas than what I had by sitting as a team and batting the stuff around over and over again. Again, the key term, team, not individual. Next slide. Always challenge the status quo. I walk into sites all the time. Why are you doing that? Because we've done it that way for 5 years. I walked into a facility that was metering flats at parcel rates. Why are you doing that? Because the person before me had me trained this way to run those flats at a parcel rate. So they didn't understand the product, didn't understand what they were running, and they didn't understand the rate categories. Again, question the status quo. Why are we doing something? And don't provide the answer, but lend guidance where to look so that they can find the answer. So my response to them was, okay, there's 3 categories of mail: letter, flat, and parcel. Tell me what the difference is before I leave today. So they looked them up, they came back to me, they gave me the specifications, and I said, okay, what does this run as? And they said a flat. So they were able to learn through their mistake. And again, I questioned the process. Why are you doing it this way? I question everything. Is there a better way to do it? Can I do it faster? Can I do it with better quality? Does this benefit my customer? Next slide, please. Okay, my pet peeve. Operators of equipment. Operators, meaning your software engineers or your data people. Operators, meaning your person and customer service. If you want, give me suggestions and I'll change the word operator to something else. But the operator has to own their own quality. If the operator doesn't own the quality of the product coming out of the press, coming out of the inserter, coming out of the computer on the pre-sort, coming out of, if you're doing letter composition, GMC, or whatever software you're using, if the operators don't own the quality, it's costing you money. That money can hire more people. That money can be your raise next week. You're just wasting it. There's a facility that I've been in. They went and took and transferred the quality to a quality control team. The operators didn't care what they were doing because the QC team would just come over and have to validate the product. That company went from little to no waste to somewhere between 10 and 15% waste. And when I say 10 to 15%, it's not just the paper coming out the back end of the press. It's the pressman's time. It's the insert operator's time. When the data department makes a mistake in the pre-sort and it goes all the way down to the press, have all of the data department's time and the press time. So again, if you did an analysis, if the operator is not owning quality, I will bet you're probably got about a 10 to 15% waste factor in there, adding people's time in along with the physical product. Next slide. So what does the QC team own? The QC team has to own the processes. They have a checklist in front of them that says an insert operator is supposed to do A to Z. When the product comes over, they match the coding on the stock being driven into the machine with the coding on the chipboard sample. So if you've got a sample to match, they're looking at the letter code or whatever coding there is. Again, does the MRDF file that was generated from data, that's the mail run data file because you're doing matching, does it have the same pieces in it as the pre-sort? Is it the same stuff? Did anyone check the barcodes to make sure that they were unique in the database so that you don't have duplicate barcodes? Did the barcodes even make it into the database to eliminate undocumented mail? So again, this just happened last week. We were putting together a mailing. It was a plant I visited. We were putting a mailing together, and they wanted to add tracking. So I know Jen's on the webinar with us. I would never allow anyone modifying a mail.dat to use an editor, because what happens is you either edit the wrong information or you don't do it on both ends, meaning you did it in the print file, but you didn't do it in the mail.dat file. And the consequence was a $2,000 assessment, because that's exactly what happened. They used a text editor. They edited the data file going to the press. They didn't edit the mail.dat file in the PDR. So I had two different STIDs. And don't forget, what is uniqueness? Uniqueness is class, mid, and serial. And the class is the STID. So if you've got a different STID, you end up with undocumented mail. So again, QC, if there was a process that was written, the data person could follow that process using an official mail.dat editor that would have edited the data file being used in the plant and the mail.dat. Next slide, Michelle. I'm done with my rant on QC. Okay, a goal that is presented without that plan and those checklists to ensure you stay on that plan is nothing more than a wish. Next slide, Michelle. So if you're looking for a lean journey, I originally started my lean journey with the Gimba Academy. They have DVDs and online courses that are wonderful. If some of the materials that I've used today comes from the Gimba Academy. If you're looking to move from yellow belt, green belt to black belt in Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma, I would recommend the Management and Strategy Institute. And then I want to thank everyone that's given me the experiences from Mellor's Hub, where people call me, email me, text me all the time with issues within their plant, especially around undocumented mail, and why we really shouldn't, except for loop mail, meaning mail pieces that the post office just keeps sending around in stupid circles. There shouldn't be any undocumented mail if you have processes in place. And again, a couple of people have recommended that you keep a ledger in the data department with your starting and ending serial numbers for each job, so that you can ensure that you're not duplicating them or that they're not undocumented. Or if you do get an undocumented assessment, you can go in and find the trail of what jobs those barcodes belong to. So that's it for me. Any questions coming up, Leo?
We didn't have any right at the moment, but I did come across one earlier. What happens if you happen to be a believer in lean processes, but your boss isn't? I mean, if you're going to have to implement these processes, there have to be changes in workflow, office practice, and so forth. How do you persuade your boss or your company owner that this is something you need to do and spend some money on it, spend some time on?
Okay, so if you don't have leadership buy-in, lean will never work. What I would do is get a team together, pick a project, make the changes and document the savings, and then go to your boss to say, okay, we took lean principles, we did this, this, and this, here's the change or the improvement, and here's what it saved the customer or the company. And then try to sell it that way. So pick an event, try to make the change, document it. If the boss still doesn't buy in, I would strongly suggest not moving forward, because it's a culture change in the company, and it can't be done in the middle. It has to be from the top down. And then just as a reminder,
it's all about money.
I would say initially, yes. Money for the company and reduced expenses or elimination of non-value added motion products and things like that for the customer. And then just as a reminder, if anyone has access to a database, an IV informed visibility database, there's 400 markets out there being tested around reduction of overtime. And I'd like to hear from someone if they're seeing duplicate 918, 919 runs on mail, if that's at least a day apart.
Okay, hopefully people will get some information to you. All this lean stuff might be a good idea to work, something good to work on, of course, while we have a lot of unfortunate downtime right now. Let's see, I have a question. What about a team members that go along but don't really buy into lean, people who kind of just give it lip service? How would you deal with those?
Making them part of the team and listening to what they're saying. So again, it's a team approach. It's not an individual approach. So you need to get their buy-in. So we're sitting with them, make sure that they're contributing.
And probably making them realize that their ideas are being valued in some way and that they actually bring a result that's good.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? No, I don't think we got anything else. I gotta admit one thing, Tom, when you were talking about office organization and how people should implement some of these practices, not just in their paper files, but their emails as well. I felt a real twinge of guilt because I have a less than perfect email organization, so I have to listen to what you're saying myself.
You can start folders, start having those emails
and say, so if I can't find things, it's my own fault, I guess. Okay, well, I think we've done a good job here today talking about lean in the office environment, and I want to thank Tom again for presenting to us today. If any of you have any questions afterwards, please drop Tom a line or me. And the webinar handout is available, as you can see, on your screens. Our next webinar is in about a month, and it's going to be a revisitation of the political chess game, going over what's going on in DC, what's going on in headquarters, what's going on with the Postal Service, and I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about by then, because this is an ever evolving situation. If you didn't see the slides earlier, and you are not subscribers, we're in the closing days of our subscription sale. A subscription sale, I guess is the right word for the summer. So if you're interested, please take a look at that, and we'd like to see you as part of the family. Otherwise, I want to thank everybody again for calling in today. I want to thank Michelle and Jennifer in the background there, making sure the lights stay on. Of course, thank Tom for being our ever reliable and ever informative presenter. So until we talk on the next webinar, I want to thank everyone again. And in the meantime, stay safe. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.